This conference will now be recorded.
I'm not able to hear you, Ram.
All right. So what I'm going to discuss today, I'm going to discuss about one of the important topic inside the Microsoft Azure Data Engineering, that is Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory is a ETL tool. So what exactly we are going to do by using this ETL tool is whatever the data source systems we have. Let's say for example, I have a blob storage, and also I have a data lake generation tool. So here you can able to store your files, right? Either you can use storage account blob storage, or you can use a data lake. Okay, and daily our client is uploading some files with the data into these locations, blob and data lake. And also from my applications, for example, this is a ticket booking application. From this application, whenever you are booking a ticket, the data will come to this Azure SQL database. Or I have another application. Whenever you are booking a ticket, the data will come to a SQL server installed in my local computer, right? So these are all the four type of storages, data storage systems already we have created and we have discussed. This is about the storage account, and this is about the data lake generation to for storage, how to create, and how to create a Azure SQL database, and then after on-premises SQL server. So from these four data sources, if you have any kind of data, if you want to load this data from these four different systems or from any of one system into your SQL server, so we have a data warehousing, again similar like your SQL server. We want to load all from all these data source systems, whatever the data we have, into another SQL server. So how to perform this ETL? What do you mean by ETL? ETL stands for extraction, transformation, and loading of the data. The Azure Data Engineer, a major work is ETL. ETL stands for extraction and transformation. T stands for transformation. L stands for loading. Extraction, transformation, and loading. So we are going to extract the data from different kind of source systems. Might be blob or data lake, Azure SQL database, on-premises SQL, or anything else. Mostly 70% of the projects contains these are the four any of one data source system, or we can have a Oracle also we can use as a data source system. So some applications their data will come to Oracle on-premises, Oracle database running on a particular server. So that data we are going to loading into Azure Cloud SQL database. Okay. So by using this Azure Data Factory, or you can use a Azure Databricks. Azure Data Factory is a complete ETL tool with a drag and drops. So you can simply drag and drop the things, and you can able to configure the ETL process over here. You can able to configure the ETL process over here. right? So what I'm going to do, earlier to this Azure Data Factory, what are the ETL tools available in the market from Microsoft? So before introducing this Azure Data Factory, we have a SSIS. SSIS is one of the component from MSBI, and it is a Microsoft Business Intelligence tool. And so this SSIS stands for SQL Server Integration Services. So this SSIS is a service you can able to install in your local computer. It is a on-premises ETL tool. On-premises ETL tool. But now everything is moving to Azure cloud, right? So inside the Azure cloud, do we have any kind of ETL tool similar like your SSIS? That is nothing but a Azure Data Factory. So what is this ETL tools will do? ETL tools are going to extracting the data from different source systems, and any kind of business logics, or if you want to transform the data. Transforming the data means, like for example, converting the currency, the data what you are getting from source system is a US dollars. If you want to convert while you are loading the data into your destination, you need to convert to Indian rupees. So that is converting the currency, extracting the data from different source systems and transforming the data, okay, converting the currency, and finally loading the data into destination. This is what your Azure Data Factory or any ETL tool is going to perform. This Azure Data Factory is a cloud-based ETL tool. Cloud-based ETL tool to perform complete extraction, transformation, and loading of the data. All right. So what are the main components of the Azure Data Factory? Main components of Azure Data Factory. Every point is an important point. Whatever I'm going to teach in this Azure Data Factory, be careful about these points. Okay. Every point is an interview question, no doubt. The main components are the building blocks of the ADF. So what are those main components of Azure Data Factory? Are the building blocks of the Azure Data Factory? Pipeline, activity, data set, linked service, integration runtimes, okay, pipeline, activity, integration runtime, and triggers and parameters and variables. So these are the building blocks of the Azure Data Factory. Throughout our Azure Data Factory training, we are going to talk about these things only. Pipeline, activity, data set, linked service, integration runtimes, triggers, parameters, and variables. So what is a pipeline? What is a pipeline? So pipeline, we are going to design inside a pipeline the ETL process by using different activities. Designing of the ETL process by using different activities and defining the execution flow. Designing of the ETL process by using different activities and defining the execution flow. Okay, so by using inside the pipeline, we are going to use different activities. What is a activity? A activity is to perform a specific operation, to perform a specific operation like copy the data. So to copy the data, we are going to use a activity, copy data activity. To perform a specific operation like a copy data, we can use a copy data activity. Similarly, if you want to perform delete a file, to delete a file existing in a location, use delete activity. To perform a specific operation like a copy data, we can use the copy data activity. To delete a file existing in a location, we can use delete activity. So similarly, we have so many activities available. So out of these many activities, we can use to perform a specific operation. Based on the requirement, we will drag and drop a particular activity. And inside this pipeline, we are going to define these activities. Okay, first, do you want to delete activity? And then after, I want to copy the data. So this is how you are going to define the execution flow. Which one you want to execute? Delete. Then after, copy. So that is the flow of the definition. So what is a data set? Data set is a, for example, you are going to perform a copying of the data. So to copy the data, what data you want to copy and where do you want to store this data? So what data you want to copy and where do you want to process this data? So that is called preparation of the data. So which data and where you want to process? Preparation of the data to move and transform and load. Whatever the data you are going to prepare, taking from source system or the destination, you need to prepare a data sets. So you are going to copy the data from source to destination. How many data sets you require? You need two data sets. One data set for source data, another data set for destination. And what is a linked services? Linked services are the connection information. You are going to connect to a particular data source, right? So what is that data source? And to establish a connection to the data source, you require the connection information. Connection information to any data source. Connection information to any data source. Integration runtime. What is a integration runtime? Integration runtime is to perform all this, to execute your activities and pipelines and data set and linked services, you require some compute infrastructure. You need a compute infrastructure to execute activities and performing the data movements from different networks. Definitely, to execute all these things, you need some capacity, some CPU, RAM, or whatever it is. So to provide that based on your integration runtime, so whatever you have designed, the business flow, whatever you have designed, those things we are going to schedule the triggers scheduling of pipelines on a specific time automatically scheduling of a pipelines on a specific time automatically we need triggers. So parameters and variables are, if you want to pass any input value to the pipeline while executing from outside, if you want to pass any input value to the pipeline while executing from outside, while executing the pipeline from outside, if you want to pass any value, you can use parameters. If you want to store or assign a value temporarily in pipeline execution, if you want to store or assign a value temporarily in pipeline execution, we can use the variables. We'll go one by one. Okay. So the building blocks, main components inside the Azure Data Factory is, these are the things. We don't use anything more than this. Of course, inside the activities, we have different kind of activities. We'll go one by one, right? Pipeline is for designing of the ETL process by using different activities and defining the execution flow. A activity to perform a specific operation like copy data or delete activity. We have so many activities. Data set is the preparation of the data to move and transform and load. Linked service is a connection information to any data source. Let's say, for example, so this is the requirement. I have a blob storage. This is my Azure account. Inside Azure account, I have a blob storage account. Inside the storage account, we have files like emp1.txt, emp2.txt, emp3.txt. So this is how we have 3 files. All these 3 files, whatever the data contains, I want to load this data into a SQL database table. This is my SQL server. Inside this SQL server, I have a table. So into that table, I'm going to load this data. I want to load this data. SQL server, EMP table. So how can we do this one? What are all the things we need to do? So to perform this one, first you need to create one Azure Data Factory. Azure Data Factory you need to create over here. So by using this Azure Data Factory, what are the things you need to prepare inside the Azure Data Factory? First, you need to create, okay, let me go to the scenario. Loading data from blob storage to SQL database. loading data from blob storage to SQL database. What is it? So what are all the things you need to prepare first? You need to create two linked services. First, we need to create a linked services. What is a linked service? Connections. So two linked services. One linked service is for blob, another one is for SQL connection. Then after, data sets. How many data sets you need to prepare? Two data sets you need to prepare. One for blob data set, means what files you want to take, and the structure of the data, formatting of the data. And the second one is SQL database table, which table you want to perform, and all those things. Linked services, data sets, and then after, activities. What are the activities is enough? Only one activity is enough for me, that is copy data activity. So this copy data activity is going to use these two data sets. One is for source as a blob, and one is a destination as a SQL database. Then this whole process we are going to define inside a pipeline. Inside the pipeline only we are going to take these activities. Then finally, you need to prepare an integration runtime. Integration runtimes. Then after, scheduling inside the triggers. So this is how we are going to do the process. Let me create a Azure Data Factory service first. So log into azure.com. Sign into the portal. Click for now. So you need to create a Azure Data Factory first. Data Factory, search for, yeah. Click on this Data Factories. Create. It's a free trial. Resource group can be created here. E-classes project. In which region you want to create? ESTS. What is the name you want to give? E-classes ADF 321. It's a version. There are two kind of versions actually. Version 1 and version 2. Version 2 is the latest one. There are so many new activities are introduced. So earlier we have only few activities, but now it has more activities. And also, this is also very important interview question. Note down. What is the difference between ADF V1 and V2? Version 1 and version 2. Version 1 and version 2. Version 1 doesn't contain Azure DevOps Git repository integration. Means whatever the Azure Data Factory you are developing, that you can put into a Git repository. I hope you know about the Git. That is a kind of a version controlling and storage system. And version 1 doesn't contain many of activities, and version 1 doesn't contains mm, 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 doesn't contain this CI/CD methodology of deployment. We will understand what are these three differences going for. Okay, if you want to see more something more differences, you can go over here. What are the key differences between ADF version 1 and version 2? If they are asking you, you just tell them we have worked only version 2. These are the key differences. Very small minor changes might be so many. You can go ahead and discuss like this. Version 1 don't have any parameters concepts. Okay, scheduling is based on the pipeline start end times and data sets available. Scheduler trigger or execution by external scheduler. So scheduling also we don't have earlier. Trigger concept we don't have. We don't have triggers. Parameters also we don't have. Activities are performing or defining the actions to perform on your data within a pipeline. A data factory can have one or more pipelines. A pipeline is a logical grouping of activities. A data factory can have one or more pipelines. A pipeline is a logical grouping of activities that together perform a task. Linked services are much like a connection strings, which define the connection information that's necessary for data factory to connect to the external resources. Okay. Okay, so you can tell them majorly these are the three key differences. Version 1 doesn't contain Azure DevOps Git repository integration. Version 1 doesn't contain many of the activities. Version 1 doesn't contain CI/CD methodology of deployment. Okay, so I'm going to choose version 2 only while I'm creating. Version 2. Okay, and go to Git configuration. I don't want to do this Git configuration. Just disable this configure Git later. Okay, then review and create it. Click on create. Done. It has created. Okay, simply go to the resource.
So Ram, hi, this is Rajesh.
Yeah.
In the virtual term, we are going to create this data factory.
Yeah. So yeah, mostly the creation of resources,
Yeah,
whatever data factory or blob storage or
yeah.
anything else. Generally, this is called provisioning,
Oh, okay.
provisioning of the resources. So the
Okay.
provisioning of resources mostly done by Azure
Architect.
admins.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, Ram.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do, so this is your Azure Data Factory service. If you want to start the development, you need to go to Open Azure Data Factory Studio. Okay, start authoring and monitoring your data pipelines and data flows. Click on Open or here. Okay, so here, see in the left side, there is a home button. Currently, we are in the home button, and the second one is author, and so the third one is monitor. The fourth one is manage. So total, how many views we have? How many views? Home tab and author tab, monitor tab, and manage. These are the four different kind of tabs we have: home, author, monitor, and manage. So mostly we are going to develop all the things inside the author tab only. So simply you can go to the author tab, the second one. See here. So what are the pipelines you created? What are the data sets you created? You can able to see over here. Okay, what is the very first thing we need to do when we are going to perform this scenario? To perform this scenario, the very first thing what we need to do is creating a connections, linked services to one storage account and one SQL database. Okay, all right.
Ram, your screen is not moving.
Yeah. One second. Right. So we need to create two linked services. Before we are going to create a two linked services, first we need to understand whether we have these two storage systems or not. So let me create two storage systems first, like one for blob and the one for SQL Server, right? So after you are creating these two sources, you need to go to monitor, and here you can see creating a link. Sorry, go to the manage. Under the manage, you can see there is a linked services. Under the manage, you need to create linked services. One linked service you need to create for blob storage. You need to click on under linked services. There is a new option you can observe. So you need to click on new, and then you need to click on this Azure Blob Storage. So because your storage system is Azure Blob Storage, right? Or any other data source systems to which you want to connect. So simply you can click over here. If you want to connect to any Azure, any database related or any files, and these are all the different kind of ODBC connections, NoSQL databases, Cassandra. So these are all the supported data source systems if you want to establish a connection. So my data source is Azure Blob Storage. So you need to select the Azure Blob Storage. Then click continue. So here you need to provide what is your subscription. Under this particular subscription, do you have any storage account? I don't have any storage account over here. If you have a storage account, you can able to give the storage account name over here. Then click on create. Once you are creating, a linked service will be coming over. Then the second one is one more linked service, but one more linked service is for Azure SQL databases, right? Azure SQL database I'm going to choose. Then click continue. So under this Azure SQL database, if you observe what is the subscription and do you have any servers under that, and what is the database, what is the username, password, you need to specify that information. If you observe, whenever I am going to create this linked services, it is asking to integration runtime. So what is this integration runtime? So to connect to this particular data source, you and performing the data movements, definitely you required a integration runtime. So by default, it will create one integration runtime, that is auto resolve integration runtime. So where you can see that integration runtimes, you can able to see under the integration runtimes. See here, there is automatically some compute infrastructure will be provided to your data factory, that is auto resolve integration runtime. This is having some capacity. So based on that, your connections will be established, and it is going to execute the activities and performing the data movements from one source to destination. So based on your integration runtime capacity, your execution of your pipelines, activities, linked services will be more faster. Got it? Okay, right. So the next thing is, see, if you want to schedule your pipelines, you can go to these triggers. And if you want to create any parameters, you can able to see. If you want to store all your content into a GitHub, you need to configure here. Okay, after creating the linked services, then you need to prepare the data sets, and then you need to take the activities and pipelines. So to create the data sets, you need to go to author. Under the author, you can see there is a data sets. So click on new data set. From where you are going to take the data, it is a blob storage. Then click continue. What is your file? Delimited text file. So for that delimited text file to connect, what is your data source? Already we have created a linked service that you need to map over here. So this is how we can able to create the linked services. Then after you need activities, right? So take a new pipeline. Once you are creating a new pipeline, under the pipeline you can see there are so many activities available. For example, this copy data activity, just drag and drop over. Then whatever the data sets you prepared, right? So those data sets we are going to map as a source. What is the data set? That data set you can map to where you want to load, that you can map, under the mappings, you can able to map the records over here. So this is how we can able to create linked services here under managed app, and integration runtimes here, and data sets here. Under here we need to create the data sets. Here we need to create the pipeline. Inside the pipeline, these are all the different kind of activities, and we need to configure this. After that, you need to schedule these triggers. Click on triggers. Any questions so far?
Do you create and show all these requirements?
Come again?
Do you create and show all these requirements which
Yeah,
we are loading multiple files into a SQL Server?
definitely. I will do this practically tomorrow by
Okay.
creating one SQL account. I will upload some files, and I will create one
Yeah.
SQL Server. I will create one table. How to move all these 3 files data into a SQL Server table, we will discuss.
So you store the data into SQL managed instance or a Synapse server? What is that?
Either anything, generally Synapse data warehouse only.
Okay. Why we choose Synapse database?
That is a data warehouse actually. That is
Okay, that's
more suitable for the reporting and analytics purposes.
okay. Synapse, no SQL Server, no, there are some no like things which is not supporting, like
Yeah,
Attacker account, all those things.
even SQL,
Yeah,
Azure
that is
SQL is also not supporting some features.
okay. Fine.
Like for example, SQL Server in on-premises, it will work a merge, but the merge
Yeah,
statement is not working.
yeah, correct. Yeah.
So I'm going to discuss. So in this entire Azure Data Factory, I will discuss about different kind of scenarios. Like one scenario is files from blob, files from data lake, uh, data from Azure SQL database, data from SQL Server on premises. Okay, the destination is always I'm taking Azure SQL database or Synapse, any of them. We don't have any issue with any of them. To SQL Server, to SQL Server, to SQL Server, and how to perform incremental loading, and how to perform slowly changing dimension mechanism, how to perform incremental loading, how to perform slowly changing dimension mechanism, how to perform looping of the files, and how to secure data connection information using Azure Key Vaults and how to secure data connection, how to send email notification using logic apps, and how to lift and shifting of SSIS packages into ADF. So whatever the Azure Data Factory pipelines we have, we want to move them into ADF, Cloud Agent, and how to integrate with Git repository, and how to schedule, and how to monitor, how to deploy CI/CD methodology, and what are the different kind of integration runtimes, how to set up those integration runtime, what are the different kind of integration runtimes, how to set up, what are the different kind of activities. So we have so many activities, right? So we will discuss all the activities whatever we have. Copy data, data flows, and coming to the general append variable, delete, execution pipeline, execute SSIS package, get metadata, lookup, stored procedure, set variable, validation, web activity, wait activity, and iteration, filter, for each, if condition, switch. All these things we are going to discuss. And Databricks notebooks and data lake, USQL programming, how to call that USQL programming, and data flows contain so many transformations, different kind of transformations. We will go one by one, no issues. Okay.
Ram, you are going to send this notes?
Yeah, we will. Okay, let's meet tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.